That is too funny.
Maybe next time watch where you're walking.
Watch where you drive, you trash. The insult cracked across the rainy street like a whip. It came from a black luxury SUV that had just sped through a deep puddle, sending a wave of brown mud straight onto the sidewalk. The mud hit a woman's coat, her hair, her face, splattering in a cruel, perfect arc. The SUV didn't slow. It rolled on like nothing happened. Amara Lewis stood still, soaked in cold and dirt, blinking through the mess. People nearby gasped. A few stepped back to avoid the splash. Someone muttered that it was awful. No one moved to stop the car or call it out. The world kept walking the way the world usually does when power acts ugly. The SUV stopped at the curb. Ahead, and a man stepped out under a giant umbrella as if he were entering a red carpet. Ethan Crow, billionaire, tech king. The man who used to be her husband. He turned and saw her. For a second his face showed surprise. Then the surprise hardened into a smile so thin it barely counted as one. He walked back toward her slowly, like someone returning to a scene he believed he owned. Amara felt the old chill rise in her chest. Not fear exactly, but the memory of fear. She had once lived inside his shadow. She knew his moods the way sailors know storms. She also knew she was not that woman anymore. 10 years ago, she met Ethan when she was a junior architect. Brilliant, hungry, and still too trusting, he had walked into her life with the shine of certainty, praising her mind, promising her a future that sounded like a dream. He loved her fast and loud. He married her even faster. She thought her life had become a safe lift upward, but some love is a cage with flowers on it. Once the ring was on, Ethan's charm grew teeth. He didn't hit her. He didn't scream in public. His power was quieter. He controlled with little cuts. He corrected her in meetings. He joked about her in front of friends, then called her too sensitive. He made her feel like every success belonged to him for supporting her, and every failure belonged to her for embarrassing him. He grew rich. She grew small. The night she decided to leave, he didn't plead. He laughed. He said, "You'll be nothing without me." He said, "Nobody will want you once they see you without my name." He placed the divorce papers on the table like a business deal and watched her sign with the calm of someone sure she would crawl back. She never did. Amara rebuilt quietly. She took work in smaller firms, then started her own. She learned to trust her instincts again. She learned to walk into rooms without shrinking. She learned that peace is not empty. It is full of yourself. Her company grew from 2 employees to 200. Her building started changing skylines. She didn't chase headlines. She chased purpose. Ethan watched all of it from a distance, and hated that he still cared now on this wet street. He looked at her muddy coat and tilted his head like he was observing a joke. "Didn't see you there?" he said, voice casual, almost bored. Shame. Mud is hard to get out of cheap fabric. Amara wiped her cheek slowly. She could taste grit. Her umbrella had flipped inside out in the splash. Her folder of drawings was damp, yet her posture stayed steady. "You did see me," she said quietly. "Just didn't think I mattered enough to stop." Ethan chuckled. He glanced around at the small crowd gathering, enjoying the attention. "Still dramatic, Amara? Still acting like the world is against you? Maybe if you had stayed married, you'd be riding in a car like this instead of walking in the rain." The bystanders watched, uncomfortable. Some recognized him, some recognized her, but nobody stepped in. They were waiting to see which version of power would win. Amara breathed once, deep. She felt the old burn in her throat, the one that used to make her apologize for things she didn't do. It wasn't there anymore. In its place was something quieter and stronger. She didn't argue. She didn't insult him. She simply turned, away to step around him. That was when Ethan leaned closer and said the line he knew would sting. "You look like you always did." Like someone trying to be important. His words were meant to reopen a wound that no longer bled. Amara stopped, not because it hurt, but because she realized he was still trying to win a game she had already left. She turned back, calm. "I am important. Ethan, just not to you anymore." He blinked, thrown off by her ease. Real confidence is confusing to people who live on control. He opened his mouth to say more, but a soft horn sounded behind him. Another car had pulled up. Not flashy, not loud. Deep navy, polished, with a small flag on the hood and security vehicles. Quietly sliding into place around it, the street seemed to tighten like a held breath. A man stepped out from the rear seat. Tall and composed, wearing a dark coat and rain on his shoulders like it didn't dare disrespect him. He moved without hurry, but with the kind of presence that makes the heir part Kieran Ashford, the Prime Minister's son. People didn't rush him. They didn't have to. The recognition spread out in ripples. Whispers turned into silence. Phones dipped. Even the rain seemed to fall softer. Ethan stiffened. His smile faltered in a way he couldn't hide. His world was full of wealth, but not this kind of weight. This was not money. This was state power. History. The kind of family name that opens doors before it knocks. Kieran's eyes found Amara. First, they softened, instantly worried as he saw the mud streaked across her coat. He stepped to her side and offered his scarf without a word. She shook her head lightly, not wanting a scene. Kieran gently placed it around her shoulders anyway, then turned to Ethan. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't frown dramatically. He simply looked at Ethan the way a judge looks at a claim that doesn't stand. "Did you do this to my wife?" Sentence fell into the street like a bell. My wife? 2 words that changed everything. A flicker of shock ran through the crowd. Some gasped openly now. Ethan's face drained of color in slow motion. His mouth opened, then shut, as if the air had left him. Kieran kept his gaze steady. "I'm asking a simple question." Ethan tried to laugh. "It came out dry. Wife, congratulations, I guess." "I had no idea, small world." Kieran nodded once. His calm did not shift. "Yes, small world. Small enough that what you did just now will be seen by more people than you think." Ethan swallowed. He glanced around, noticing the security team, the growing crowd, the cameras that had quietly started recording. For the first time all morning, he looked uncertain. "It was an accident," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to splash anyone." Amara didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence was stronger than any argument. She watched Ethan's excuses crumble under the weight of a truth he never expected to face. Kieran turned slightly, speaking. To his driver, not as a threat, but as a decision. "Call the city office. I want the traffic cameras from this block saved. Also call the community center. If anyone here needs help getting home after this rain, we'll cover it today." He looked back at Ethan. "We don't use power to humiliate people. Not on the street, not in private. If you want to speak to Amara, you do it with respect. If you can't, you don't speak to her at all." There was no shouting, no drama. Yet Ethan looked smaller than his own car. It's the kind of man who lives on. Dominance cannot survive in the presence of quiet authority. Ethan tried to say something final, something sharp, but nothing came. Gave a stiff nod, turned, and walked back toward his SUV. The vehicle that had felt like a throne minutes ago now looked like a cage he wanted to hide inside. He drove away slower this time. Amara felt Kieran's hand lightly touch her elbow. He asked if she was okay. She nodded. Her eyes were wet, not from the rain, but from the strange relief of seeing the past finally lose its teeth. She whispered something only he could hear. "He still thinks I'm that girl," Kieran answered softly. "He doesn't know her anymore." The crowd began to disperse, but the mood had shifted. A young woman offered Amara tissues. An older man muttered that no one deserves that kind of treatment. The same bystanders who had been silent before now carried a quiet respect. Not because of Kieran's name. It's because they had just watched. Dignity outlasts cruelty. Kieran walked Amara to the car, shielding her from the rain with his umbrella, though she wasn't afraid of rain anymore. Once inside, warmth wrapped around her shoulders. She looked out the window as the street pulled away behind them. The mud on her coat didn't feel like shame. It felt like proof. Proof that she had survived a man who needed her small. Proof that her life was no longer his stage. Proof that love, real love, doesn't splash you with dirt to feel tall. Sometimes the best revenge is not a fight. It is a life so full that old cruelty can't find room to breathe. If this story hit your heart, comment where you're watching from and what you would have done in Amara's place. And subscribe for more cinematic stories about quiet strength, real love, and the moment the past finally learns it has no power here anymore.